8 years. That's how long I've been producing fighting game content here. Yeah. So obviously a lot has changed since then. New games coming out, new characters debuting, and so on. With that in mind, roughly 4 years ago, I uploaded this video listing my top 15 favorite fighting game characters. Looking back at that video, my first thought was, I totally left out this character and that one. Then again, as I mentioned moments ago, things change. I originally wanted to get this video out on the 8th anniversary of my first ever fighting game upload, but of course, that didn't happen. Still, I'm not gonna wait until November 21st, 2023 to drop this video, even though I know there are gonna be some new characters that will make my list. I guess I'll do a small update when that time comes. Anyways, enough talking, here are my top 50 favorite fighting game characters of all— Wait, no, I said 50. Yes, top 50. Why 50? I don't know, I just thought it would be more fun. Grab a snack, grab a drink, something to munch on because as you can see, this is gonna be a big one. The same standard from my top 15 video applies here as well. I love me some Starfire, Cheetah, Deadpool, Cable, Psylocke, and Spawn, but they won't appear in this list as they debuted in comics and we are looking at straight up homegrown fighting game characters. Now with all that being said, let us begin. Number 50, Xion the Unborn. The start of this wacky journey begins in Animorphs the Fighting Game with the long-lost eldest son of Sparta that I'm pretty sure he would like for Dante and Virgil to forget about. Xion's unborn beast form instantly caught my attention, which led to him being the very first Bloody Roar character I ever picked up. I always saw his transformation as the best one in whatever game he appeared in, as it looked cool and stood out seeing it wasn't exactly an animal. With him also being a beginner-friendly character in my first Bloody Roar, that being Bloody Roar 3, Xion was a perfect first pick for me. Number 49, King of Dinosaurs. Hey, the very first wrestling character on my list. While his run as the babyface T-Zoc the Griffin was pretty cool, I much prefer the big shouty heel King of Dinosaurs. I also want to point out that joke character is not a bad archetype to me, especially when it comes to wrestling. It just depends on the nature of the joke and whether or not it's funny. That's all to say that despite his rather cool design and his fearsome persona, KOD kind of powders out into joke character territory. It always makes me laugh how he tries so hard to be heelish and edgy that he leaves most people weirded out and confused rather than afraid or hateful like most heels intend to do. What makes it even crazier is that his fighting style is no laughing matter. Thunderous, impactful power moves mixed with some brawling and shenanigans, most of which involve him biting the opponent. Also, big ups to SNK for the upgraded climax in KOF 15, because his 14 climax was just— bleh. Number 48, Jenny the Bat. While I personally found a good chunk of the beast transformations in Bloody Roar rather awkward, Jenny's Bat Beast form was rather seamless and befitting. Her rushdown playstyle was incredibly appealing, with her aerial mobility and air combos further giving her some extra flair. Also, her beast drives are by far my favorites out of all of the Bloody Roar characters. Number 47, Alex. Yeah, I know. If you watch my original favorite character list video, this is quite a heavy drop down for Alex. You can blame Street Fighter V for that. Alex's greatest days precede his comeback in said game. While Third Strike isn't my favorite Street Fighter, I will say that he was the most fun to play in that game. His appearance in Tatsunoko vs. Capcom was a great surprise. In Street Fighter V, he was just okay. And notice that was a very weak okay. In my opinion, he was at his best in the final stages of Street Fighter V when they brought in the second V-trigger. Also, his costumes, oh my god. There are some heavy hits and some massive misfires. Despite all that, Alex still remains a favorite of mine with undeniable coolness and a bombastic, fairly agile for a big guy wrestling themed moveset. Number 46, Dolores. Dolores had myself and many others very thirsty upon her reveal for obvious reasons. I additionally love how chill and mysterious she is. That's a combo I'm a huge sucker for. I remember being hyped to see her in action and she did not disappoint. Dolores does roughly everything expected of a user of geokinesis, battering opponents with boulders, trapping them in quicksand, as well as utilizing said quicksand to teleport, and having the ability to petrify others. Then there's the mud coffins, mud spikes, raining mud, attacks that would probably be goofy with a badly designed character, which Dolores is most certainly not. Dolores' unique brand of geokinesis was made all the more stylish with her strikes and throws, some of which kinda resemble dancing and model-esque posing, at least in my eyes. I'm not exactly sure what the future holds for KOF, but I sure hope this isn't the last we've seen of Boss Lady. Number 45, Enkidu. When UDL received a new batch of playable characters in EXE latest, I instantly defaulted to Enkidu. Why? Because I wondered how a non-weapon traditional martial arts fighter would fare in a game full of weapon users and several otherworldly characters. Enkidu really turned out to be much more fun than I thought he'd be. His swift, hard-hitting style reminded me of Iron Fist in UMVC 3, and I couldn't help but scream "predictable" when landing his parry. Also, I really dig Enkidu's personality, balancing between being soft-spoken and reclusive in casual settings while being hella loud and hype during combat. I can relate to him feeling uncomfortable in social gatherings. He likens him being in such settings to someone bringing a clown to a funeral. How poetic. Number 44, Isla. When it comes to Isla, the one word that instantly comes to my mind is the word vibrant. Roughly everything about Isla is just bursting with enthusiasm and resplendence. I had expected those qualities when they had first revealed her, but I was pleasantly a bit surprised that she had a bit of an edge to her. On the other hand, these would be the qualities one would expect from a rival of the calm, collected, and couth protagonist, Shune. When it comes to fighting, I love how Shie goes the Orange Cassidy route, mostly keeping her hands in her pockets and leaving the punching to her phantom hands, Amanda. The unorthodox synergy between the two is definitely something to behold, with Izzy leaping off of and swinging with her phantom partner to produce some pretty cool attacks. Then again, seeing that she's a parkour prodigy, said attacks make total sense. Initially, I also expected Isla to have a bunch of spray can based attacks, but I'm glad SNK didn't lean too much into the obvious and got creative with her. Given the current storyline, we clearly haven't seen the last of her. Number 43, Mei Lee Jinju. Still holding on to that hope that she returns in KOF 15. Mei Lee Jinju is one of KOF's coolest and most underutilized characters. Of all her mainline KOF appearances, only one is canon. Kinda sad. Like Isla, Mei Lee is also an extremely energetic character, but relatively more friendly, and with more of a superhero-esque flair. While she's still rather peppy in her standard mode, it's her hero mode that shines above all else for me. The drastic change in her moveset, the animations, and the ability to switch stances mid-combo are beyond enjoyable. Originally meant to be the Korean Athena, Mei Lee was conceptualized as an idol, but I am so happy that SNK settled with a more Kamen Rider-inspired superhero gimmick. I find that much more unique and charming. Number 42, Nagi the Spurious. Xion had a cool standout beast form. Jenny had the good looks and a swift, strong playstyle. For me, Nagi was the total package, having the qualities of both with a vicious, bloodthirsty edge to her fighting style. Of all the Bloody Roar 4 newcomers, Nagi was the coolest one to me, bar none. The game may have not been all that well received, but it was the one that gave us her, and I'm forever grateful for that. Also, I love how she has something of a playful nature hidden behind that broody, monstrous exterior of hers. Number 41, Manat. She's linked to one of my other favorite Street Fighter characters, has an intriguing playstyle, a wonderful design, and some of the cutest charismatic animations. What's not to like about Manat? Some of her alternate costumes are awesome as well, with her story and battle costumes being my favorite. I figured they were gonna have Manat stand in for Rose in Street Fighter V, but that ultimately wasn't the case. If they had, I personally wouldn't have minded it. Number 40, Kairi. No matter how I feel, no matter what I say, Ryu will forever be an iconic character in fighting games and in video games, period. I don't hate him, I think he's actually decent. With that being said, I've always seen Street Fighter EX's Kairi as a cooler version of him. Sure, his fighting style is mostly an amalgamation of Street Fighter's many notable Ansatsuken fighters, but Kairi does develop his own spin on said moves, especially in fighting EX Layer. Speaking of that game, I really like the fact they continued on with his Street Fighter EX2 design. In my eyes, this design greatly symbolizes his internal struggles with his demonic powers, to which he then capitulated. Also, said look does give off a rather badass aura. Speaking of, the aura around his fists. I really dig that detail. If I haven't mentioned it before, I tend to gravitate more towards dark heroes, or anti-heroes if you prefer. I find them more appealing and relatable. Number 39, Siegfried. Here's a spoiler, you won't see lots of fighting game main protagonists or lead characters, if you prefer, on my list. Nothing against many of them personally, I just rarely tend to gravitate towards them. Then of course, there's Siegfried. Aside from the stuff this guy could do with a big freaking sword, his story intrigued me. It was simultaneously eerie and badass how he became Nightmare. While it was pretty cool seeing him don the Azure Knight armor, it was all the better seeing him break free from it. Few fighting game characters have seen themselves literally become the villain, and even fewer were able to pull it off like Siegfried. Number 38, Mina Majikina. Oh, SNK. Y'all can be such weirdos sometimes. To think they created a bright character like Mina, gave her a cute little pet, and yet she's one of Samsho's most depressing characters in terms of the lore. If Mina were an anime, she'd be Higurashi When They Cry. Seeing that's one of my favorite anime, it's apropos that I would really like Mina. Can't think of many fighting game archers that I enjoy all that much. Then again, I played her in the original Samsho 5, and she was nearly broken in that game. Being a huge introvert, I can relate to Mina. I found the small tweaks to her in Samsho 7 pretty interesting. I was hoping the bandaged eye was a sign of her getting some drastically new moves. While that wasn't really the case, I did like her holding said eye when someone overcharges an arrow shot. Pretty clever, SNK. Number 37, Yuki Terumi. When he shed the disguise of Hazama and went full-on sinister and ballistic, I wanted to play with the true Yuki Terumi. The facade of Hazama was decent character-wise, but his playstyle turned me off. Once I saw gameplay footage of Terumi decimating opponents with a cruel and sadistic brawling style, I knew I was gonna pick him up. I had so much fun stumping craters into people. While his design isn't too much of a drastic change from Hazama, he more than makes up for it with his ridiculously and, dare I say, sometimes hysterical psychotic personality. Also, that laugh, the English one. And the Japanese one. Number 36, Vanessa. Vanessa is something of a trailblazer in KOF, being the first ever female boxer in the series. While some of her moves show that she clearly went to Rick Stroud's school of stick, move, and knock down, Vanessa shows a smooth, chill personality beneath that aggression and flair. Another more modestly designed character, Vanessa is still quite the looker. A woman in uniform that knows how to throw hands? That's hot. Number 35, Mai Shiranui. What more can I say about Mai that hasn't already been said? Often seen as one of the most attractive fighting game babes, Mai is wonderful because she's even more than that. With additions and tweaks to her move lists over many games, I've always loved playing her. KOF 2002 Mai is still my favorite Mai. Though I love Mai, I am not a fan of SNK's handling of her since her comeback in KOF 13. Here's to hoping she'll have something interesting going on storyline wise in the upcoming Fatal Fury, because honestly, this Andy shtick is getting boring. They either need to get hitched or split, please. Number 34, Frost. After NetherRealm Studios gave me the wonderful birthday present of Jade's playable return to Mortal Kombat 11, the icing on the birthday okay, I'll stop. I was all the more hype when Frost was the final confirmed character for the main roster. A chunk of people were thrown off or even creeped out by her cyborg-centric fighting style, being equal parts reminiscent of Cyber Sub-Zero mixed with Elisa robot body horror. If only NRS hadn't pulled the trigger on having a playable Cyber Cryomancer in MK9, this would have been something unique to Frost, which would have made it all the more better to me. Lore-wise, it didn't really do much for Frost, as she basically went from taking L's to then having them forcibly downloaded into her memory. The poor cold-blooded brat. Still love her though. Number 33, Najd. Here's a fun fact. I actually recorded this entire video before the season 2 announcement, so of course I had to come back and re-record. It's funny when that happens sometimes. But yeah, I had expected Naj to be a one-game character, and I'm glad I was wrong about that. I've been saying it for a while, ever since I figured this character wouldn't be on KOF 15's main roster. Naj is too cool to be wasted potential. She has way too much going for her. Her visual design is really cool. Her fighting style, coupled with her usage of Umbra-Kinesis, is just too cool, and I'm glad they brought her back. Now, hopefully she gets more of a story, and we can see more of her interactions with other characters in the KOF universe. Looking forward to it. Number 32, Tao Kaka. Tao Kaka doesn't refer to anyone else by name except herself, but isn't a self-aggrandizing prick. Instead, she's one of the funniest and most adorable fighting game characters ever. Equipped with a quick, chaotic, and cartoonish fighting style, Tao can be quite the menace when rushing down. If you're not prepared for it, you'll probably end up losing your focus laughing whenever Tao fights Arakune, or Squiggly as she calls him. No, she's adorable, but we're not talking about that Squiggly. Much like the face peering through her shadowed visage, Tao Kaka is bound to do something that will definitely put a smile on your face. Number 31, Elizabeth Blanktorsch. When I first laid eyes upon Betty here, I jokingly thought she was the estranged mother of Ace Attorney's Franziska von Karma, and to me, that's a good thing. I love Franzi. For those of you who aren't familiar with Ace Attorney, Franziska is a prosecutor known for carrying and using a whip wherever she goes, including the courtroom. When she was younger, she used a riding crop, you know, the same weapon that Elizabeth used before. Betty's use of luminokinesis makes her comparatively straightforward fighting style quite flashy, literally. I don't know how to explain it, but I fancy her super serious, proud personality. Similar to characters like Hilda and Rose, Elizabeth proves to be quite attractive even with a more modest attire. Again, big ups to SNK for bringing her back in KOF 15. She's fantastic in there. Number 30, Peacock. Back to the chaotic cartoonish characters, Peacock is a formerly human highlight reel. Regardless, she has some of the craziest, comical, and yet creative attacks and animations in fighting games. She starts tame by merely poking you. Then it gets a bit silly with throwing pies, launching opponents in the air with a springboard, and reenacting Charlie Brown's numerous football kicking failures. It then stumbles into Wacky World with her shoving her foot through one of the eyes of her Argus system, summoning daggers through the same eyes whilst elbowing the opponent, having her pet Avery shoot a shotgun blast through her hat, and flipping birds not like that. I even appreciate the old school cartoon aesthetic of Peacock. Annoying people with her zoning is always fun, and my personal favorite animation of hers? Her enthusiastic pointing when commanding Boxcar George. Number 29, Giovanna. I can already hear some people getting salty at me for putting her above Vanessa, but it's my list, deal with it. I still believe if Giovanna's default colors were this, instead of this, no one would even be talking about a Vanessa ripoff. Despite that, and many players claiming her playstyle is more like a Street Fighter character's than a Guilty Gear character's, I've enjoyed Giovanna. My biggest letdown was that Rei ended up being merely an aesthetic for the most part. Don't get me wrong, I love how the two of them gel with certain attack animations, I just wish Rei could have been something more. Still, Giovanna is my favorite Guilty Gear newcomer. I just love the contrast between her explosive, kick-heavy fighting style and her incredibly insouciant demeanor. Like, she just no-sells nearly everything from regular attacks to something as horrifying as the Heavenly Potemkin Buster. The way she says this though?
No, cause I'm gonna eat them.
I mean, let's move on. Number 28, Armika. I'm sure I've said this in another video, but in case you are new here or don't recall, Street Fighter Alpha 3 is my favorite Street Fighter game. One big reason for that is the debuting Armika. I have never been a fan of Zangief. I always thought despite being a big old Siberian tiger bear, he was pretty goofy. Alex had more of a cool factor. However, bless Capcom for making Armika. Not only did Street Fighter get a standout female wrestler, but a strong, wickedly agile wrestler. I get that people usually associate big bodybuilder bruisers when it comes to professional wrestlers at the time, but some of the greats were also lean and athletic. Combine all that with good looks, hype-fueled charisma, and loads of fan favor, and that, as we say in the wrestling world, is a top draw. Number 27, La Mariposa. Hey, we're still on Awesome Lady Wrestlers. Awesome. La Mariposa is actually quite similar to Armika in a few ways. Both of them are masked, very upbeat, hella attractive, and have electrifying wrestling styles. La Mariposa employs a mixture of lucha libre and some capoeira into her fighting style. Just seeing some of the stuff this character can do is just breathtaking. I actually thought it was cool how they contrasted Lisa from her lucha libre alter ego. While La Mariposa is giddy, energetic, and charismatic, Lisa is chill, reserved, and quite nonchalant. It was a nice touch to add a bit of depth to her as a character. Also, on top of all of that, Lisa is pretty brainy, and that just makes her cuter. Number 26, Rose. Rose is just a searing coalescence of elegance and uniqueness. With the way she moves and fights, I think even Rose knows she's a statuesque stunner who oozes smoothness. While I don't find her fighting style all that mystical or spellbinding, ironically, it's still fairly unique. She clearly knows she's got legs and knows how to use them, being that her kicks are some of her best normals. If that wasn't enough, she does some stylish moves with her scarf, including a spinning kick while twirling around on it. Though her design in Street Fighter 4 was a bit spotty, I loved all of her alternate costumes. Her return to Street Fighter 5 was wonderful. I've enjoyed the tweaks and new moves added to her repertoire, especially that godlike super. Number 25, Ferrator. While Frost and Jade's return to Mortal Kombat 11 made me incredibly happy, my heart broke when this awesome duo was excluded. To me, Ferrator were the best and coolest newcomers in Mortal Kombat X, and I'm gonna say it, the best duo character in MK. Noob Smoke were alright, but I prefer the more brutal, brawler-esque nature of Ferrator. While the moves they pull off aren't necessarily pretty, their chemistry is still impressive. I love how Tor is just swinging Farah around like a weapon, throwing her like a projectile, and she is just having the time of her life. Their double team command grab is always satisfying to land. All the more satisfying is their X-ray, especially the zeal and hype that Farah has whilst running up to stab the opponent. Ferrator remind me of the classic monster heel and manager pairing in pro wrestling, except in this case, both are incredibly deadly. What's all the more shameful than their Mortal Kombat 11 exclusion is that some dialogue in the game seems to possibly hint at Devora killing them off.
Have you seen Ferrator?
Only their corpses, Collector.
As if her body count isn't already stacked enough. Now boo! Boo this bug woman, bug lady. Just boo this character. Oh my god! Next entry. Number 23, Maya.
You're not worthy prey.
It never gets old, man. With someone who can be potentially as cutthroat as Maya, her sparing you because you weren't dangerous enough to be big game kinda cuts a bit deeper. I was instantly drawn to Maya in Killer Instinct 2 since she made me think of DC Comics' Cheetah, except human and equipped with daggers. Her KI 2013 return excited me and lived up to the hype. She received a more modest yet royally clean redesign. Her gameplay tweaks were pretty cool, slightly reminded me of the unarmed mechanic in Samurai Showdown, except Maya could do certain moves to pick up her weapons, even when done mid-combo. The animation of her shaking her head while blades cut you during her ultra combo is just ice cold. Overall, I loved having Maya back in KI, but I wasn't expecting her to have a fraternal twin vampire sister of all things. Spooky. Number 22, Akira Kazama. As Street Fighter V's run continued and continued, I became less and less interested in the game. Then Capcom brought back Akira Kazama, thus bringing me back to that game. Good job. Now that I think about it, they probably should have saved and hyped her up as the final mystery character in Season 5. Then again, looking at everything with Street Fighter 6, I get why they put all this hype behind Luke. Anyways, it's just good to see rival schools get some new shine in a current fighting game, and Akira was a fine choice to represent the franchise. Additional props to Capcom for bringing her into Street Fighter V while still maintaining that rival school's essence about her. Also, having Big Brother Daigo dropping in to assist her was really clever. Number 21, Nine the Phantom. I still find that wedding picture of her and Jubei kinda weird. Like, on first glance, someone not familiar with BlazBlue would think that it's just a woman taking a selfie with her pet at some special coronation. No! Regardless, 9 was my favorite character to play in Central Fiction. While her design isn't all that wild and colorful, her playstyle and animations are another story. They went the extra mile past the typical fire, air, water arsenal, but 9 would acquire certain special spells depending on which moves were used and how many times they connect. While 9 is number 21 on this list, she'd probably be in the top 5 of characters I've had the most fun labbing. Learning all the recipes of her spells and what they all do, while very vast and intricate, was really enjoyable to me. Pulling off certain combos and setups in real matches with 9 felt incredibly rewarding. Number 20, Nitara. While I've praised NRS for bringing back some of my favorite MK characters in 11, I simultaneously feel like they knife-edge backslapped me when it came to Nitara. I mean, she appeared in 2 MK movies but didn't return to the playable roster around the same time. Then again, when I began looking at fighting game characters, storylines, etc. in more detail, it was clear they had no long-term plans for her. Still, I love Nitara. I always liked doing her grab with her sucking your blood, then immediately doing her blood spit projectile afterwards. I basically sucked your blood and spat it back in your face. I really dug her design and was happy she didn't look too much like a Hollywood vampire. And I just remembered that's the name of a band. Speaking of, fun fact, Nitara's Conquest mode in Deadly Alliance made numerous references to rock bands. Perhaps NRS should let Nitara be a guest in Guilty Gear and connect with the Nightless in that universe. Number 19, Hilda. If you've never played Uniel, I'll just put it like this. If you despise characters with absurd space control, you'll hate Hilda. I can guarantee some of you are probably fuming at what you're witnessing right now. Hilda is one of very few final boss characters that I love. She felt much different and, dare I say, more enjoyable than most other zoners I've played before. When I saw her design for the first time, I thought her personality would be like an anti-Rose. Smooth talking, classy and charming, yet sinister. Instead, she is just immensely psychotic. And I love it. Also, the designs of Hilda's many insane attacks, which are basically her crafting blades and other staggering shapes from darkness and light, makes this woman a walking, talking gothic art museum. Finally, this super. Just everything about this super. The animation, the visuals, the ouch factor, and Hilda's piercing laugh. It's perfection. Number 18, Setsuna. Hibiki Takane is cool. Setsuna is even cooler to me, and I was hoping he was the last Blade character that came to Sam Show. Setsuna is one of the most underrated badass swordsmen in all of fighting games. Everything about this South of Heaven slasher is just cool. His design, fighting style, demeanor, even his pet owl who carries his sheath. Like Orochi, he has an affinity for damaging and destroying souls, which is one of the coolest supers in all of fighting games. While I've grown disillusioned with this particular franchise, I think Setsuna would be a killer guest character in Mortal Kombat. Even better, in another Capcom vs SNK crossover. Oh wait, I did a video about that already. There are plenty of cool fighting game swordsmen, but I don't think Setsuna gets mentioned nearly enough. Number 17, Julia Chang. The only thing better than a beautiful bruiser babe is a beautiful bruiser babe with brains. Enter Julia Chang. I really love how creative they got with her over time in terms of design and creative progression. While she'd probably still be my all-time favorite Tekken character regardless, I feared they would stick too close to the whole sweetheart environmentalist nerd gimmick. I'm glad I was wrong. Of course, I loved everything about her JC alter ego. With many of her throws and moves being straight up wrestling moves, I had hoped they would play further into that. Sadly, Julia ditched the JC garb in Tekken 7, but I kinda dug the whole professional streamer gimmick as well. The way they announced her Tekken 7 comeback was pure genius. Number 16, Basara Kubikiri. Bringing back this unstable dead warrior on October during Samsho Season 1 pass was a sharp move by SNK. Speaking of sharp, I think Basada's shuriken with chain is one of the coolest and most unique weapons in Samsho. I always enjoyed the drag down to the underworld command grab, as well as the absolute bloodbath that is his SSM. Like a lot of my favorite characters, I've always enjoyed his insanity. While it's not as bloodthirsty a game as Samsho, I'd like to see him mix it up with the members of Capcom's House of Horrors, Darkstalkers. Just imagine Basada versus Lord Raptor. Basada is just a cavalcade of many things I love. Insanity, bloodthirstiness, mysticism, and ghouls and ghosts. Number 15, Jacko. Whether you love or hate her, you won't forget a character like Jacko ever. Just every mannerism and animation of hers is captivating. When I first played Jacko in Revelator, I felt every emotion from being wowed to thinking, who comes up with this? To dying of laughter. Even in Strive, I find myself laughing out loud at what she can do. Minion combos, kicking minions to interrupt attacks, rolling around on her prison weight, that cartoonish yet impactful command grab, there is just so much. In the wacky world that is the Guilty Gear franchise, very few characters are as much of a highlight reel as Jacko Valentine. Number 14, Baiken. Yeah, something, you like Baiken, something, but you don't really mean her, something, shut up. Many of you didn't start parroting that dumb shit until Rufelmonger said it first, and that's not a dig at him. I actually love the guy. It's the annoying pseudo-geniuses and meme junkies that I can't stand. Do us all a favor.
Shut your dumb ass up!
Anyways, it's Baiken's wildly unique and defensive playstyle that made her appeal to me. I appreciate characters that have bizarre playstyles as they add variety and depth to rosters. And no, I'm not gonna sit here and lie to you saying that aesthetics were not a factor in me liking Baiken. However, she stands out from most other fighting game babes with a clear element of badassery in her looks and swagger. Then there's that insane arsenal of weapons that she has. While a bit cartoony to me at times for someone so serious, it's still awesome. My gripes with netcode aside, Baiken and Samsho is a match made in Death's embrace. And thank goodness SNK is embracing rollback. Yes! Oh, and Guilty Gear Rev 2 got it as well. Number 13, Carmine. This crawfish of a guy was my very first character pick when I first played Unio. Being a fresh new fighting game, I didn't recognize most of the cast outside of the few guest characters. One look at this grimacing pseudo-ginger and I knew I wanted to play him. It turned out I really enjoyed this hybrid of rushdown and zoning gameplay. Carmine was one character I felt really enabled characters to get super creative with their gameplay. It was interesting hearing his English dub in BB Tag. It wasn't what I imagined he'd sound like, but it was a decent fit. Sure, most of his hemomancy comes at the price of sacrificing his health, but hey, with a wild and enjoyable playstyle, I can live with it. A little ironic. His Mizumi page makes one element of his gameplay hilarious, seeing one of his weaknesses is listed as, even if you play flawlessly, you'll never get a perfect. Number 12, Parasol. Remember all that talk about Baiken and liking characters you quote don't actually play, blah blah blah. Only reason I'm bringing that back up is because Parasol may be my most recent example of a character I liked so much that I was willing to sit and practice getting good with them. When I first learned of Skullgirls and saw the beginning roster, I was just fixated on Parasol. I kept telling myself and my friends that were also hyped for the game that I was gonna main her no matter what. I had gotten a little freaked out when I saw she had a bunch of charge moves, and for the longest of time, I really didn't like playing charge characters at all. To think it took this smooth, gorgeous, legit redhead, unlike Carmine, to break my charge character hating spell is something else. Aaron Fitzgerald's voice work for Parasol is flawless, whether it's classy Parasol or salty Parasol, the latter having many hysterical lines. Her mixture of fencing, commanding her egret troops, and leaving explosive tears from her living weapon Krieg made for a pretty fun character. Number 11, Cody. I never thought we'd see the day where Cody would clean up this well and become the freaking mayor. Quite honestly, I was alright with anti-hero Cody. When they revealed this new look for him in Street Fighter V, I actually thought he was gonna be a mob boss. Upon learning that he was the new mayor in one of the coolest reveal trailers ever, actually I was a little worried that I wouldn't be able to accept him on the same level as before. Again, I prefer the darker, chaotic anti-heroes. Surprisingly, I like Mayor Cody Travers. There are shades of his old character in his demeanor and fighting style, with a nice dash of new sprinkled in. While I'm personally not a big fan of Mike Hagger, it was additionally awesome to have Cody carrying on his tradition of cleaning up Metro City at his desk and with his fists. And the pipe. Number 10, G. Where do I start with this guy? When Capcom first mentioned him upon revealing the Season 3 of Street Fighter V, I was incredibly curious as to what he was even about. Everything they did to hype up G's debut was brilliant. Passing out pieces of his declaration to certain EVO attendees, bringing out his voice actor to give a speech while in cosplay, and having Del the Funky Homo Sapien and Dan the Automator provide music for his trailer, which Capcom screwed up by not releasing a full version of the song. You messed up, Capcom, and now that you got this next game coming out, a little far too late, even though I'm pretty sure some people like me would still be grateful if it came out. G's fighting style and animations shine like no other in Street Fighter, and I'm not just saying that because parts of his body are literally gold. That Uncle Sam finger pointer blaster super is one of the best I have ever seen. Apparently, G's creation stemmed from Capcom wanting to create a fighting president character. While such a concept comes off a bit goofy to me, Capcom succeeded in making G anything but. This guy has to return in Street Fighter 6, which, judging by now, if he does, it's not gonna be anytime soon. Number 9, Luong, a secret freaking agent. I still can't believe it, man. I mean, it makes sense with all the mystery looming around this very fine femme fatale, and then she double-crossed her teammates yet again. Luong, I love you. I really do, but what is wrong with you? I'll bet you Gongil is gonna intensely vet the next woman he decides to bring home. Luong did with her legs what Yamazaki does with his arms, dishing out whip kicks so quick that she gives the victim severe whiplash and curses every generation after them to be born with it. Her flirtatious demeanor simultaneously puts Kim on edge and kinda makes you wonder what the true intention behind her suggestive climax is. Luong is easily one of KOF 14's best newcomers, and she was more than deserving of her 15 return. Still wonder what her deal is though. Number 8, Elena. Yet another chick who is sweeter than your favorite dessert and kicks more ass than your favorite action movie. While this cute, kind-hearted Kenyan didn't return in Street Fighter V, Elena is an unforgettable character. You either loved her fun-loving personality and her equally as fun gameplay, or got super annoyed whenever she activated her healing powers. I mean, I'm convinced that everyone loves Elena, seeing that she managed to get a selfie with Akuma of all people. Number 7, Shermie. My favorite little ginger snap suplex machine queen. I'm sure you all saw how real the thirst was when SNK first revealed her for KOF 15. Aside from being quite the looker and the malevolent charmer, the thing I've always loved about Shermie was that she didn't look like a typical grappler or wrestler. Who would have thought that a fashion designer slash keyboardist could chuck out suplexes so intensely and so efficiently that it would make Brock Lesnar, sorry about that, but Brock Lesnar proud. I like slightly deceptive designs like that. It reminds me of how people would underestimate Hiei because of his size. I used to despise Orochi Shermie, but I've actually warmed up to her since revisiting 2002 UM, and thank God SNK gave her an actual good climax in 15, rather than that gambling garbage of a move from before. Number 6, Yamazaki. Fighting games have quite the cluster of crazies, but I feel like Yamazaki stands explosive head and boulder shoulders above most of them. The guy looks like he'll beat you to death with a palm tree he pulled out of the ground with just his teeth. I mean, he already bites and lifts people with just his mouth before slamming them without literally lifting a finger. Yamazaki is basically the embodiment of Faust's cartoonish demeanor, soaked in the blood of a psychotic man and all the people he sliced and diced that were also crazy, but not as unhinged as he. His more straightforward, underhanded attacks may not be as intriguing as his over-the-top moves, but they pass the ouch factor test, and I always tend to like characters who stomp mud holes into their opponents. Number 5, Orchid. Again, like Baiken, I love beautiful women that also clearly exude a badass aura. Karate hotties, lucha lee babes, and all that. I've always enjoyed Orchid and Killer Instinct, but KI 2013 Orchid is on another level. She still looks stunning, her black-eyed glare is kind of alluring in a ways, but as the song says, she'll break your face. Everything about the Fire Cats is just brilliant. Sending them out to attack, temporarily becoming one herself, and this taunt. Ooh, this taunt. While the roster has greatly grown since its release, including the return of some of my favorites, I still mostly default to Orchid when I play KI. Number 4, Ino. I'm sure I've said this every time I see Ino, but there are few fighting game characters cooler than a heavy metal witch like this. Even when Ino was an infuriating final boss, I couldn't bring myself to hate her. What Jimi Hendrix did with his guitar in terms of playing it, Ino did the same in regards to using it as a weapon. Obviously Ino can shred it, but she also rides it like a witch, clocks people with it like a wrestler from the 80s, and shoots projectiles from it like Colonel Bluegrass. Ino is just as seductive as she is destructive, and I love it. You could imagine how happy I was that she returned in Strive. The only slight letdown for me was that while her 2 supers look incredible, nothing compares to her instant kill. Number 3, Jade. Oh, Jade. I can't believe how I went from being so happy and excited with your reveal in MK11 to just outright despising that game despite you and Spawn and Frost being on the roster. Even with the release of that super sick witch skin later in the game's run, I had already stopped caring about that game. Still, it was good to have her back after her absence from the MKX roster. The new additions to her moveset such as the pole vault, the staff reflect, and the pole slam teleport were hella fun. Also, Jade's loyalty is another one of her best traits. Kitana is lucky to have her as a bestie, and Kotal is lucky to have her as a lover. I forgot about that. Wonder what became of Jade after that happened. Regardless, despite me quickly souring on MK's latest installment, Jade remains my all-time favorite character in the franchise. Number 2, Eliza. The detail and effort put into Eliza's animations is just insanely impressive. As someone who's highly interested in mythology, I loved how I knew most of the gods and goddesses referenced in Eliza's attacks, from normals to supers to the very parasite embedded inside of her. Speaking of Sekhmet, the anti-patch for Skullgirl's second encore added a cool new mechanic in which Sekhmet's attacks shed blood, in which Eliza can retrieve to heal herself with. Sekhmet gained a killer new super as well, further exhibiting the influence of Carmine on Eliza's playstyle. Like another Skullgirl's favorite of mine, Parasol, Eliza's got an entourage, and like Ino, she is a psychotic, sexy musician. As you can see, Eliza is practically many of my favorite fighting game characters wrapped into one. My first breakout video on this channel, same one I mentioned earlier in this video, involved me noting the many cultural and mythological references in Eliza's design. That was a college project. For real, it was. While it is not my most viewed video, it is, to this day, my personal favorite video that I've made and posted on this channel. So it's safe to say that my fascination with Eliza is one of the things that kicked off my fighting game content creating journey. With that being said, if you've watched my previous ranking of my favorite fighting game characters video before watching this video here, you might have realized that with Eliza here, there is a new number 1 character on my list. Who is it? Well, let me first tell you who it isn't. Here's some honorable mentions.
You know what you're getting yourself into.
If you know me personally, or if you've been watching my videos recently with the reveals of character like Marisa in Street Fighter 6 and Alawi who just got revealed for Project L, you should know I've been a long time lover of the muscle mommies, and Vanessa was super cool and super fun to play. I mean, obvious things aside, great looking character, really fun playstyle, but I just love the vibe that Shiki has. It's like an aura of something wondrous and beautiful mixed with some cold, dark, haunting rage. And I love that. I like both of the Kazama brothers, but the one with the cooler head is my favorite. Before I had first saw Sogetsu, I used to think any water-based fighting game characters were kinda corny, and of course he changed my mind about that. The same thing that I said about the Kazama brothers can also apply to the two kings. Love them both, but I think Armor King is the cooler one. The fact that Namco did a great job at contrasting the two kings by giving Armor King more Puroresu or Japanese wrestling influences, that made me appreciate this character all the more. Look, I get the appeal of Morrigan, I really do, but honestly, I feel like they should have used John Talbane in more crossovers.
You are in too deep.
You know what, in hindsight, Natsu wasn't that bad of a character. She wasn't. No sarcasm attached. It's just the fact that you tried to get her to replace Taki. Taki is too godlike to be replaced. And there you go. There are plenty of more honorable mentions, cause a little fun fact, this video is actually based off a top 100 list that I put together recently. But I figured 50 would be fun enough without being too much. Anyways, here we go. Number 1, Darlie Dagger. As if the return of Samurai Showdown 2019 wasn't hype enough for me, SNK then revealed this character. The weapon already looked hella dope, but seeing it transform legit surprised me. The fact that she had a gusher of a command grab got me even more excited. Then there was the punch. Ooh-wee, the punch. It is the most satisfying move to land in a match, especially if it's a KO, which is roughly 97% of the time. Seeing how niche Samsho has always been and seeing it's a very rare occurrence that a fresh new character really gets a big push, I always felt like Darlie would be confined to just Samsho. This annoyed me because of netcode, but of course SNK is going to take care of that, so here's to hoping. Then SNK surprised me. They brought Darlie into KOF 15, which would have definitely shattered my expectations if not for a dickhead, aka a leaker. Still, it was not all ruined because those of you who have followed me know how much I was anticipating this character, and she did not disappoint. The repurposing of older moves, the new moves, doing combos with her that she couldn't do in Samsho, this all made me love this character all the more. Darlie just has it all for me. A great look, a hell of a personality, a high impact, satisfying fun playstyle, the whole nine. To think, SNK almost brought out a fireman character instead of Darlie. Thank God they walked that back. I probably would be hitting SNK with a tweet a day if Darlie ended up on the cutting room floor. Every time she does that barrel chugging wind pose, I say, drink up baby, you earned it. Well, drink up yet again, Darlie, because you have definitely earned the #1 spot on the list of my all-time favorite fighting game characters. And with that, that is going to be the end of this video right here. Whew! What a journey down memory lane this was. It was really fun still, but let me all know what you think. Who are some of your favorite fighting game characters? You are more than welcome to put your lists down below. And as always, I am Chris Lotus, signing off. You all take care of yourselves. Be safe out there. Be cool to each other. See ya.